everybody, and welcome to another episode of Lost with Friends. As always, I'm your host, Paul, and joining me today is someone who is a Lostie, however, was not at the Lost 2014 event. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Christal, and I am a huge Lostie. Do you want me to tell how I got into it
Sure, go
from the
ahead.
very beginning? Okay, very beginning. It's really kind of a funny story. I saw a couple episodes on TV, and somebody else was like, "Oh man, this show is so cool," and I watched a little bit of it, and I was like, this is
Now,
kind of
is this
strange.
season one?
How do you, yeah, this is season one. And
Okay.
I'm thinking to myself, how do you make a show out of a plane crash? I kind of thought it was a cheesy idea. But a couple weeks later, my mother was an apartment manager, and somebody had moved out of their apartment and they left a whole bunch of stuff behind. And turns out one of the things they left behind was a season of Lost. So I started from the very beginning and fell in love with it. And it just kind of went from there. Turned out to be very, very huge Losty. But what's funny is I didn't I didn't even know that there was a whole community until about 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago on Facebook. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, there's really people out there like me. So it was kind of funny. And that's how I became a Losty. And now I have
Okay.
tons and tons of lost friends and just loving life because of it. So,
Um, but now you didn't know anything about that there was people online, like you had never heard, that there was people on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that?
I had no idea because I actually really didn't start getting on Facebook until 3 years ago. And I just happened to come across Lost Support Group and I joined it and I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. Because I thought I was the only one out there that was just absolutely crazy nuts for it. And so I was in heaven when I found it. And then that same month is when I found out about the convention. And I was like, oh, that is so cool. And then when I found out they were going to have another one, I'm like, okay, I'm going.
No, wait, that was after the convention happened? You found out
It
about it,
was
or?
right afterward, like immediately
Okay.
afterwards,
Okay.
because people were posting their videos and their pictures from the event. And I was like, this is so cool. It's like not even real.
All right.
That's how it all started.
Um so when I was thinking about an episode to discuss with you, I knew there was one qualification, and that it would have to feature John Locke pretty heavily. So I
You know
didn't
me
pick a.
pretty well.
I do. I know that you're a big fan of. Now wait, is it you're a fan of Locke, or you're a fan of Terry O'Quinn, or both?
Well, actually, it's both. It started out with Locke, and then it just kind of carried over from there. Now I follow Terry on Twitter, and I'm a huge fan of Terry O'Quinn. So,
Okay. So yeah, when taking that into account, like I said, I knew I had to pick one that featured him pretty heavily. I didn't choose one that's Locke centric episode, but I thought this episode, Hearts and Minds, would satisfy the need for some Locke in an episode featuring you.
definitely, definitely, probably, it's a good one, especially because you gotta have that wacky pace. That kind of makes the show for me.
All right. My very first note is, as we saw at the end of the previous episode, Boone has taken an interest in Saeed and Shannon's new relationship.
Right, which is one of the first things I jotted down. The fact that Boone is jealous of Saeed's time with Shannon. I kind of find that odd. I mean, like, is he really in love with her? I mean,
Well, I mean, we find out by the end of the episode, yes. Well, he was until really the end of this episode. It bugs me
Right.
though. I'll get to that later. Um,
Okay.
I have Saeed jokes about the mysteries of the island, which I always think is really nice when they can, kind of poke fun. Even the writers can kind of poke fun at the fact that, like, yeah, there's all these goofy mysteries, and they make fun of by saying that, what'd she say, her feet are
Her feet
swelling
would
or something.
swell. Yeah. So the shoes will fit her.
So I love when they make little jokes like that.
Right.
I have notes about Hurley throughout the whole thing, but pretty much just this entire episode is just a tour de force of Jorge Garcia, because I don't think there's a single moment where he doesn't make me laugh in this entire episode.
Oh, I love him. But yeah, I got lots of notes about Hurley. He's just hilarious, and he's such a breath of fresh air. I mean, his character is amazing.
Um, then we go right into Boone's flashback, and my note is a flip phone. Was this really that long ago?
Yeah.
I have, and then Boone threatens Saeed, who immediately comes, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't back down, which is a thing that I've noticed rewatching these, is that, anytime Jack says something to him or Locke says something to him where they're trying to assert that, like, I'm in charge, I'm the leader, like, Saeed just does not take that.
Right. So,
And I have that Locke stops him and says that they'll want Saeed on their side, which, of course, at that point we're
yes.
supposed to question for what. And then we
Mhm.
see the hatch door pretty much in full for the first time. Big moment.
Right, because then, I mean, yeah, he says we don't want to make an enemy of Saeed, because then you see later on that he brings Saeed, brings Jack. Saeed brings Jack to Locke to look at the hatch later on. So um, I think it kind of backfired because he didn't want it open,
Right,
right?
right.
Saeed didn't want to open it up.
Yeah, he thought they should. He's like, why? He's like, we need to bury it and forget about it.
Yeah, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't want Saeed as an enemy
No, absolutely not.
there.
I have Hurley discussing his digestive issues with Jack. Again, makes me laugh. And he says that Jin has it in for him, which is, again, hilarious, a hilarious concept. And then he talks
Hilarious.
about the fact that the toilet, or, that he's going to use the leaves for toilet paper.
Right, right. He soiled Jun's family honor. I just love that. I love that line.
Which turns out is actually kind of true.
Meaning?
Because Jin's father was a fisherman. So to pretty much deny him, like, you know what I mean? Like, if Jin catches you a fish and then you deny, like, you're like, oh, I don't want that. Like, that is, in a sense, soiling his family's honor, because it's like, oh,
Right.
this is what my father did. Now, realistically, this is what I do, despite never wanting to be that. He's like, now this is what I do. So, like, it is, I mean, it wasn't, but in a sense, looking back, one could go, oh, maybe, there was an aspect of that.
He didn't really, I don't know, to me, he didn't really act like he was offended. I mean, he didn't
No, no,
really
no.
seem
I'm not
that
saying I
way.
think he was actually offended, but I'm saying, like, one, you know what I mean? Like, when you go and look back at it, it's like, oh, well, that actually is his. He was. I'm not saying he was offending his family's honor, but that actually is his family's honor, is being a fisherman.
He's
I
very
think. You know what I
proud.
mean?
He's very proud. Yeah, very proud. Where he didn't used to be proud, obviously. He was ashamed.
Right. I have Jack spying on Kate, which is similar to Sawyer in the previous episode.
The only difference is Jack's not a southern pervert.
Right. And then Kate takes Jack to Sun's garden, which is the first time that we see that section of the island as well.
Right. I have a comment to make there, or a question. Why would you need a garden? You got like an island full of fruit. I mean, was it just kind of to pass the time and feel productive, or were they really running out of fruit?
Well, at one point in the previous episode, she's like further inland, Kate is, going after some fruit, and she says about the fact that the trees closer to where they've made camp, whether it be at the caves or on the beach, they've been picked clean. So if they bring
Mm-hmm.
some of that stuff closer, and it also helps because then they can realistically control how and when certain stuff is grown, I think.
Right. And they're probably a little leery about wandering around deep in the jungle with that thing roaming around the island.
And with others
I know I
being,
would. So yeah, that's a good point. The others and the monster.
yeah.
I don't think I'd want to be deep in the jungle, at least not by myself.
I have in Jack and Kate discuss if Locke is hoarding the boar, and Sun continues to act like she can't hear them. And I pointed it out in a previous episode. I think it was the episode right before this. The fact that Kate seems to be looking at Sun every so often. I mean, Kate in this episode,
Yeah.
finds that she does speak English, but I think it they've been hinting that Kate suspected that for a while because she just keeps looking at Sun, who's looking at them as they're talking about all of this secretive stuff.
I'll have to go back and watch that episode again. Not that I haven't seen it a million times, but I didn't really pick up on that.
Yeah, like I said, it was in the previous. I think it was the previous episode where she's telling. Yeah, it has to be because where she's saying about the fact that Sawyer has a case that has guns and they're in the caves, and like she's kind of looking, like Sun is watching them, like trying to not be obvious that she's listening, and like Kate keeps looking at her, and I think I caught her looking at her in this episode too.
Huh.
I have Locke and Boone talk about the hatch door, and Locke tells a beautiful story about Michelangelo. It gets me every time, and
Hmm.
this is one of those moments, as I've discussed in previous episodes, where I put my phone down. Because oftentimes when I'm watching TV, even Lost, a show that I love and that I've seen several times, sometimes I'll be on my phone or doing this or doing that. But there are certain moments where a character will say something or whatever where I just have to stop everything and just focus on what's happening on the screen because it's just so powerful. Like when Locke is telling
Hmm.
Charlie about the moth and how
Hmm.
they make silk and all that stuff. Those are the types of moments where I just put my phone down and I pay attention. And him telling that story in this episode is, I put my phone down and I paid full attention to what was going on screen.
Yeah, that's exactly the way it is for me. There's just certain scenes that are just absolutely beautiful. One of my favorites is when Locke is talking to Jack in the jungle in the episode White Rabbit.
Right.
I just love that scene.
But to be fair
Yeah,
though, you're biased because of Terry O'Quinn.
I a little bit. But there are some other, I mean, there are, I love pretty much all the characters. Yeah, and there's some really beautiful scenes, not just Locke scenes, but yeah, I'm a little biased.
My next note is in that story that Locke tells, he references 4 months, which four, of course, one of the numbers. I tend to point those out on this
Hmm.
show.
That's his number, actually, too.
Yeah.
Locke's number.
Um, I have Charles. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing the last name, but Measure. I don't know. In the flashback, the one who plays Shannon's boyfriend. I've seen him in other stuff. I love that guy. He's awesome. Um, I have Shannon shows Boone the mark on her forehead when she's
Hmm.
brushing her hair back. And I don't
Hmm.
know, that seems a little odd to me. Like I know she was taunting him, you know.
Hmm.
As I point out a little later, she loves the fact that she has the control in their relationship, but
Right.
it just always seemed a little odd to me.
Yeah, she was conning him. I mean, she got what she wanted. I mean, well, in the end, I mean, Brian left her with the money, but she, I don't know, she played Boone well. But I really like Shannon. I mean, after seeing her backstory, um, I really actually liked her because she really
I think
wasn't
you're the
treated
only
well.
person who likes Lost who likes Shannon as well.
No, actually, there are a few other Losties that actually like Shannon, but I'm one of the ones, yeah, one of the few that sticked up for her. And so, you know, everybody dealt with their pasts in different ways. And a lot of people didn't like Shannon just because she was a spoiled brat, you know, but that was just her way of dealing with it, you know, and everybody else, they dealt with what happened to them in their own way as well. But because hers was a little different, people were like, oh, I can't stand Shannon.
That's a big part of it. I have Locke and Boone arguing over telling people, especially Shannon, about the hatch, and then Locke knocks him out and ties him up in a weird way.
Very weird.
Yeah,
How
I
do you learn
couldn't
to do
even
that?
I was looking at it trying to figure out like could one copy that, and I mean I don't know anything about knots, and we find out later in this episode how he knows so much about them, but like that was like the arms, I don't know, that was weird.
It was weird. But yeah, Locke knew that that Boone had some stuff to let go of, so he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's one of the things, and you know, we find out, of course, at the end of the episode that you know he knew that you know it would whatever Boone would see would help him let go of whatever he was
Hmm.
holding on to. But that's one of the things that kind of bugs me about the Locke character is that yeah, he knows, like he has like a communication with the island pretty much, but he's too much in the way. Like he found the island, or it found him in its own
Hmm.
time. He seems to want to get everybody to jump to his page of the book, which
Right.
you can't. You, in my opinion, you can't do that. You can't just jump in. You know what I mean? Where at where his journey is, they have to make it there themselves. But he's too interested in
Right.
kickstarting that and forcing everybody to catch up to where he's at.
Right. I understand what you're saying. I think it's because he just he knew and he wanted everybody else to understand how important the island was to them. Um, you know, that he knew that they were all there for a reason, and he wanted everybody to experience that. But yeah, I think it's, you know, you the characters did have to find it for themselves. Yeah, you're right there. So he
And
was a
then
little overzealous at times. Yeah.
yeah, I have the fact that Locke puts the what did you call it? The wacky paste.
Wacky paste.
Okay, the wacky paste on the back of Boone's head and then throws the knife at him, which I thought was a nice little callback to the first time we kind of are introduced to him when he throws the knife and Jack says, you either have really good aim or you have really bad aim.
Hmm. Right. Locking his knives. I don't think Locke knew that it was going to give him a hallucinogenic experience. I think he really did think that he was treating his wound. And then when he finds out later, you know, what it made Boone see, he realized that, you know, because he was like, is that what it made you see? But I think in the beginning when he first put that stuff on his head, he was thinking that he was just, you know, helping his wound. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I disagree. I think he knew from the get go what he was doing because he was making that mixture when they were talking before, you know? So I think he
Right.
knew, and especially with the fact that Boone has brought up Shannon several times, or the fact that at least Locke saw, especially earlier in the episode, you know, oh well, he's getting on Saeed, and Saeed is talking with Shannon. Obviously, he has something with Shannon that he needs to let go. So I think he knew from the start that he was going to have to do something. And like you said, he even says at the end, is that what it made you see? So I think he definitely he knew, maybe not he knew what it was going to, obviously he didn't know what it was going to make Boone see, but I think he definitely knew that it was a hallucinogen.
Okay. But he was making the wacky paste after he hit him over the head, right?
But he was making it before as well when they were at the hatch and they he was talking about uh
Oh,
Michelangelo because he's mixing it and
oh,
Boone
okay.
goes, "What's that?" and he says, "Oh, that's for later."
For later. Oh, you're right. See, I watched it twice and I'm already getting lost. I wasn't paying attention to that. I'm sorry.
Um, I have Boone in the police station, and Sawyer is in his flashback. I
Mm-hmm.
love those little moments when you see it, one character in another character's flashback.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Sawyer is using one of his many nicknames for people. Yo, Croc Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Yeah, all Australians, they're crocodile hunters.
Yep. Well, no, that's one of my recurring things on this show is I tend to point out all of the funny Sawyer nicknames. So there you go. I could skip that note now. I have that Boone tells how he and Shannon are related, and that it always bugs me that the officer makes a big deal out of no blood relation. I understand why they reference it, especially considering what happens later between the two of them, but as someone who has a huge chunk of family who is not blood related, their chosen family, that irks me.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that the officer has to make a big deal out of that.
Right. And yeah, and it kind of bugs me as well because if you know that someone is being if there's domestic violence going on, most police will check it out if you file a report. And they didn't seem to want to even check it out. That kind of bugged me.
Right. And then Boone throws his mother's name around. I'm not sure why he thinks that will help him in this situation, but he starts throwing Sabrina's name around.
Money, money
Maybe.
talks. I
Maybe.
think that's what he was thinking.
I have the fact that the officer has a false eye, and as we know, eyes are a recurring element on this show.
Oh, he has a false eye, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see, there's another thing I missed.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool.
I have that Boone then decides to pay the boyfriend a visit, and he offers him money. And my next note is, love costs 50,000. No wonder I've never had it. Um, Kate, I have Kate lying to Sun about where she was going on the flight, and as I said earlier, this plays into my theory that she suspects that Sun can understand English, which, is obviously proven correct when she notices that that Sun was laughing at something that she said.
Oh, yeah. So she was actually testing her.
That's what I think.
Wow. That's a good observation.
Um, I have that Jin catches all the fish and Hurley doesn't even get one. And then he gets an injury and tries telling Jin that he has to pee on his foot. And just his use of communication to indicate pee on my foot is hilarious.
I love it. That is one of the funniest scenes in the whole series.
Some of the people that I met when I first, well, it was actually like my second day in Hawaii. I met them and we went to they took me to a place for breakfast. And we were pretty much the outdoor section of the restaurant was like almost right on the beach. And a comment was made about, jellyfish or something. And I said about getting stung. And they immediately went about, somebody having to pee on my foot. And we all had a good laugh about that.
Yeah, it's classic.
But then Jin quickly knows at least one word in the English language, which is no.
No. How does he know that he's trying to get him to pee on his foot? Is it
Doesn't
just because
matter.
he's doing all this yelling? He's just like, no, just stop.
Yep, just no. I have Saeed making a compass, and then Locke gives Saeed his compass and tell him he doesn't need it anymore. Because, of course, he doesn't need direction because he knows where he's going or he's found where he's supposed to be.
And I think when Saeed tells Jack that the compass is obviously defective, I don't think he really believes that.
Which,
honestly.
of course,
I
is
think.
kind of ironic considering the fact that he was, that Saeed was making fun of the mysterious properties of the island earlier in the episode, and then he kind of happens upon one later in the same episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think he believed that it was defective. I think he was kind of just making a joke.
Yeah. Boone hears Shannon's screams and the monster noises, which of course is the proper motivation to free himself, as Locke commented on earlier. And they go to hide in, I don't know what that area of jungle is called, but like inside the,
The banyan trees.
yes. Which oddly, despite the fact that it's a hallucination, proves accurate later on in regards to the monster about being inside a circle.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was kind of odd that his hallucination would know that.
Yeah, I've always wondered about the banyan trees. Like, what was it about the banyan trees that the monster wouldn't enter? Like, why wouldn't there had to have been something, some kind of magical
Well,
properties
I think it's just
within the banyan
anything with
tree
a
itself?
circle, because at one point, because like the others fence is, it's not a perfect circle, but it does connect like a circle. Um, what's his name? Bram in season 6, he pours that circle around
Mm-hmm.
himself. And then the cabin, even at the one point, they notice that the salt circle is broken, and they realize that someone has been in there. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. It's something about circles, but I'm not quite sure what. That's an old mythological thing, though, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
I have the the next scene, of course, was, as you mentioned, Saeed and Jack talking about True North.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have then that Boone goes to see Shannon and take her home and finds out the truth about what she does whenever she calls him about a boyfriend. Harsh.
Yeah, it was pretty ruthless.
This also indicates the first sign of tension between Shannon and Boone's mom, Sabrina, which we find out a little bit more about in later episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have that Shannon is more upset by the way that Boone looked at her when he was getting up and leaving more than anything else. He's always looked at her one specific way until that very moment when he found out the truth, and she did not like that look at all. I have that she definitely noticed the change in him, and then I put females always notice.
Yeah, that's true.
The next scene is Jack coming up to Locke when he's sitting looking out at the ocean, and he asks if there's any ships, and I thought that was a nice bit of foreshadowing, perhaps.
Oh yes. I mean I realize what he says, but I never, wasn't really equating it with the Black Rock or anything like that.
Yeah. And as noticed by the characters, this is the first time they've been able to talk one on one in a while, which is always nice to see.
Hmm.
And then as I noticed when Locke says, oh, let me check my hip, no Boone, and Jack is laughing, and I don't know why, I just get the sense that like it's such a forced fake laugh, and I have Jack clearly doesn't like the fact that Locke isn't forthcoming with information like everyone else. Locke isn't a follower, and this makes Jack upset.
Right. That he obviously doesn't care about following the crowd.
Well, that's the thing, is because Jack has pretty much appropriated himself as the leader. Everybody just like
Hmm.
Hurley, and except for Kate. Let me think. Kate Sawyer doesn't really tell him anything. Saeed and Locke,
Hmm.
everybody else just tells him whatever he wants to know.
Hmm. Do you think Jack was like concerned because Boone was actually following Locke instead of him, like everybody else was? Like, do you
Um,
think it kind of irritated him a little bit?
well, I've actually pointed out previously, I think there was a lot of tension between Boone and Jack, because Boone always, to me, he always wanted to be the hero. Everything that he did pretty much from the moment they crashed was he wanted to be like, he's trying to save Rose and he can't because Jack saves her.
Right.
He then thinks like, oh, I'll go get the pen for him. When
Hmm.
the he wants to take the gun and protect everybody when they're, right when they find the French transmission and they're making camp in the jungle for the night. He tries to
Mm-hmm.
save the person who got lost out in the ocean, and Jack has to save him
Right.
first.
Right.
He steals the water, like all of these things where he constantly thinks of himself as the hero. So I don't think Jack was so much upset, and again, this is just my opinion, I don't think Jack was so
Mm-hmm.
much upset that Boone wasn't following him, but maybe that, I think it was more that he was following Locke, not necessarily that he wasn't following Jack. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that tension between Locke and Jack. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it just because it was Locke.
Right. If it had been Saeed or Sawyer, I don't think it would have been as big a,
Mm,
maybe Sawyer, but I don't really think it would have been as big a deal if Boone was following somebody else as much as it was, the fact that it was Locke.
right, because Jack and Kate and maybe a few others, they think Locke's crazy. So yeah, I think they just kind of had a problem with the fact that it was Locke that Boone was following, or Jack, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
I have that Kate tells Son that she can keep a secret, and boy, ain't that the truth.
Well, Kate can't keep every secret, that's for sure. She didn't have that easy of a time keeping secrets. I don't know. I love Kate. Part of me loves her, and then other parts of me are like, she really annoyed me.
But that's good, though. I think that's what should, you know what I mean? If there's a character that you just like, that's fine. But I think a good character on any TV show gives you that balance of like, oh, sometimes I really like the stuff they do, and sometimes I really dislike the stuff they do.
Mm-hmm.
I
Definitely.
have Hurley says that there's a rumor that Jin speaks English, which is pretty ironic. And then him drinking or not drinking whatever that is that Jin gave him. And I actually, whenever I'm sick or if I'm trying something for the first time, I actually use that line quite a lot. Over the lips, past the
Right.
gums,
That's
yada
gum.
yada. Oh
Yeah.
God.
Oh God. Yeah, I love that.
I have Jack and Charlie talk about Locke, and Charlie says that he would put his absolute faith, if there was anybody that he'd put his faith in to save them all, it's Locke. And I have, again, perhaps foreshadowing.
Definite foreshadowing there.
I have that Hurley and Michael have a moment as Jin brings Hurley the fish, and, of course, Hurley and Jin have bonded. But I think the bigger thing is the fact that Jin doesn't even wait for a thank you. I thought that was like, you know what I mean? Like being the bigger man sort of thing.
Right. Jin's very humble. He doesn't need a pat on the back. He just does what he feels has to be done.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a really nice moment, actually. I agree with you there.
I have Jack brings Kate guava seeds, and the fact that I think that cements that they've made up since the last episode, because at the end of the previous episode he was still a little upset with her, but I think that moment where he brings her something for Son's garden, I think that cements that they've made up since then.
Hmm.
Um, I have Shannon and Boone in the jungle, and she's belittling him, which of course he takes. He does exactly what she wants because I think that until the end of this episode, she has the control in their relationship, and she's like, oh, what are you with Locke for, and blah blah blah, and I think she's in a sense using a type of I don't know if I'd call it reverse psychology, but just the fact that, she's like, oh, this, and this, and for him to be like, well, here's the truth, and he ends up telling her
Hmm.
everything.
Yeah, she was manipulating him,
Yes.
you know. Yes, definitely.
Um, and I have that the monster attacks, but we see no real sign of it. Even when she gets flung in the air, we see zero evidence. And I have that this is because, except for Locke, none of them have seen it yet. So even he can't hallucinate what it may even look like.
Right. They did see the shadow, when they were in the banyan trees, though,
Right.
it kind of showed a shadow, but it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't actually show the monster. So, now didn't he say something about that thing, killed her or
Yeah, he later on, yeah, he says that thing, but like because like I said up until this point, Locke is the only one that's, if I'm not mistaken, Locke is the only one that's seen it, or at least that we know that's seen
Mhm.
it. You know, he can't even, and rightfully so, he can't even imagine what could be knocking down trees and making these strange noises and whatever. Like, you can't even fathom what that could possibly be. So even his hallucination can't fathom what it could possibly be.
Right. Yeah. So it had to, I don't I don't think he actually saw it take her. It shows her up in the air, but we don't see the monster, right?
Right.
Yeah. So he can't, it's not in his brain, so obviously he's not seeing anything. He doesn't even know what to see.
Exactly. Because a shadow,
Yeah.
like you said, they saw a shadow, but like a shadow, you know what I mean? You could, anything could cause a shadow, and it makes sense that it would be something large that he would hallucinate a shadow at least, because you know what I mean, if it has the power to knock over trees and whatever, it makes sense that it would be large enough that it would cause a large shadow like that. But that's really all that he has to go on.
Right.
um and then I have in the flashback, she goes to his hotel room with a sob story. I have that she hates the way that he's treating her, as I previously said, and she knows that he's in love with her, and his lack of interest in this newly discovered side of her makes her angry because now she's no longer in control.
Right. Right. She's got to go and look after herself, and she's always wanted Boone to take care of her and bail her out. But I mean, she really did want independence, I think.
I think she did, but she just didn't know how to go about it.
Yeah, yeah. I think she was just scared,
And it was too easy to fall back on, oh, well, if I mess up, Boone will take care of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I have, and then they have sex, which is very creepy.
It's very creepy.
And then she tells him how it's going to be when they get back to Los Angeles because and he even says, "Oh, like it's up to you." And I don't think he even realizes it is, because that gave her the control again.
Yeah, she did that, and then, she's playing with his emotions, and I think that was a pretty awful thing to do.
I have that on the island he finds the blood and then her body, and then he mourns her, pretty much holding her there, and then the walk back. uh that I think that caused him to let go, as Locke told him he needed to earlier. And going back to something that I've talked about in this podcast series and with you briefly, to me, in this sense, because I always talk about how he's comparing himself to Jack in terms of he wants to be the leader, and he doesn't even realize it, but he has surpassed Jack in this moment because he has learned to let something go, which Jack, of course,
Let
cannot
go.
do.
His Right, and his line there, his words, "time to let go," to Boone. That's definitely a big line when it comes to the end of the series, and the whole theme of letting go is a big foreshadowing right there.
Absolutely. Um, and then he confronts Locke, of course, who reveals that it was it. I don't want to say it didn't actually happen, because Locke does say, it's only as real as you believe it to be. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but pretty much, yeah, she didn't die. And I would assume you were happy with that, but a bunch of people were like, "Oh
Well,
man."
uh, well, yeah, no, I didn't actually start liking Shannon until after several watches of the series. It was
Oh, okay.
only a few years after, like even just recently, like the last 3 years or so, that I actually started liking her. And it's just because because of her backstory, it just really started getting to me and making me think and kind of understanding why she was the way she was. And so I didn't necessarily like her in the beginning.
My two final notes are the fact that Boone confirms that he was relieved at the fact that, he didn't have to worry about Shannon anymore, and that Locke knows that they are now ready to keep going with the hatch.
He's got Boone refocused. Yep. Good stuff.
So now, normally, the way that these end is by me asking, you are going to 2017, right?
I am definitely going. I've already got my flight booked and my Lost 2017 registration paid for, and I am definitely going.
And I think that's going to wrap us up.
I appreciate you having me.
Oh, absolutely. I'll have you back
It
anytime.
was fun. All right.
And I will conclude it by the common phrase that I tend to use now, which is thank you, namaste, and good luck.
Namaste.
Hey everybody, it's Paul. If you like the episode you just listened to, make sure you give us a like down below, maybe subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends. Have a great day.